The most common question we get is which camera or sometimes drone should I buy? And it's kind of a vague question, but I'm going to answer it for everybody, for every type of budget. If you want to skip forward through stuff, look at the description below. You'll see links that will take you to the specific topic you're interested in, as well as links to actually buy some of this stuff. We're going to be covering general photography, as well as people who are specifically into landscape, sports, portraits, wildlife video, or flying cameras, drones. Up first, a good general recommendation, if you don't have any idea what you want, is to start cheap and get a used Canon T3. I see them on Amazon now. You can buy it right now for $280. That's with the kit 18 to 55 lens. The image quality will be a substantial step up from your smartphone, mostly because of that lens. You can actually zoom and you get real control over your autofocus. A real camera like this is a big step up and gives you a lot more creative control. A step up from that are two of my favorite cameras, the Nikon D5300, which is not the current model, but I think it's the best value right now, especially used. And the Olympus, either the EM10 or the EM10 Mark II, those two cameras are almost identical. So just shop used. Amazon, these links will take you to Amazon. They have great used prices there, but check eBay or wherever you might buy used gear. And make sure you get those with the lens, because they aren't always sold with the lens. But both those cameras are great. The Olympus here is a mirrorless camera. It's smaller, it's lighter, it's more convenient, it's better for travel. Overall, I like it better for usability. But if you wanted to shoot sports or maybe get into wildlife or portraiture, that Nikon D5300 is going to be the better choice for you. Either way, they're great starter cameras. And once you get a camera and you actually want to learn how to use it, visit this link, sdp.io/tutorials, where I have tutorials for all the cameras I'm going to discuss here that will help you actually get started, figure out where the buttons and dials do. What if you're into landscapes? The basic entry-level landscape camera I recommend is still the Sony a6000, which is now actually 2 generations behind. But the image quality on it is just fantastic. The kit lens here is okay to start with, and used you can expect to pay less than $500 for that, which for that amount of technology is a fantastic deal. If you want to step up in image quality, you want sharper pictures that you can print bigger, step up to the Nikon D5500. It's nice and lightweight, and it has a nice articulating touchscreen, which is really useful for landscape photography. And get the Sigma 18 to 35 f1.8 lens. This lens is expensive for an APS-C lens, but it is remarkably sharp, professionally sharp. And together, these two will give you pro-grade landscape photos. That will cost you about $1,100 used if you get them or together, or $1,400 new. Another suggestion at a higher price point is the used Nikon D800E. Again, that's a generation old, but the image quality is basically identical to new cameras. And I would pair that with the Tamron 24-70 f2.8. I would definitely get that one used because the prices plummet from new. Together for $2,000, that's a 36 megapixel camera that will produce stunning large prints that will blow people away. You really can't do much better than this combination here as far as the image quality goes. The Pentax K1, however, gives you a substantial improvement in usability. The K1 features an articulating screen, which means you don't have to get on your knees or on your belly when you're trying to get interesting angles with the landscape. It has Wi-Fi, it has GPS, which is useful for tagging your photos and allows you to revisit those locations if you want to shoot them at a different time of day. And it will even auto level your pictures for you, which my landscape photos are never quite level, even when I use a tripod. It also has sensor stabilization, which means your pictures are just on average going to be sharper, and other techniques that will actually produce cleaner images. I pair this with the Pentax 24-70 f2.8, which is actually the same lens I just suggested, the Tamron lens, just remanufactured for Pentax. And if you had a few extra bucks, you could get the Pentax 15-30, which is also a rebranded Tamron lens. They're more expensive, and unfortunately, they're not really available used now because they're moderately new and they haven't been selling in huge volume. But this is kind of the ultimate landscape camera. What if you're into sports? By the way, all these cameras can do other things than landscapes or sports. They're all general purpose cameras. but they have benefits for specific types of photography. So that's why I'm breaking it into categories. The T6i is a great starter camera for sports. It has a really good focusing system. And if you get it, get the kit that has the 18 to 135 lens, not the 18 to 55 lens. That's not great for sports. The 18 to 135 is, however, really versatile for sports. And for that price, $850 new or about $800 used, you really can't do better than that. If you have a little more money, now this is a big jump up here. I would have you jump up to the Canon 7D Mark II, which I would definitely get this used because it's a couple of years old now. Get the kit with the 18 to 135 also. That'll give you 10 frames a second and an incredible focusing system that will nail it almost every time. It's a big leap up. You will be shooting like near professional grade here. But one step up from that, I will upgrade your lens, and instead of that kit lens, I would put you in the Tamron 70-200 f2.8, which is substantially sharper. It gathers 4 times more light at the long end, meaning that those indoor basketball or volleyball shots, they won't be all noisy. They'll be much, much cleaner, even in low light. It'll also focus a lot faster with this new lens. Used, it's a pretty good deal. You could pick them both up for about $2,000, and this will genuinely be pro grade. A step up from that, however, is to switch over to the Nikon world. The D500 actually produces sharper pictures, and it has better object tracking. So if you're really serious about your sports photography, I consider the D500 to be a good step up from the Canon 7D Mark II. They're both capable. I just happen to prefer the D500. And I'll pair that with the same lens, the Tamron 70-200 f2.8. If you really have a budget, go totally pro. Get this camera, the big old Nikon D5. I found this to be unbeatable for sports. It does 12 frames a second with remarkable object tracking that I found even beat the huge Canon 1DX Mark II. And my favorite general purpose sports lens for that is the Sigma. I think it's 120 to 300 millimeter f2.8. It's remarkably sharp, really heavy, huge. Everybody's going to be commenting on it. If you're shooting at your kid's soccer game with this gear, they're going to be like, what the heck is going on? But you can genuinely get pro grade results with that. Of course, at this price point, you might also be shooting in primes or other lenses that are more specialized to this particular sport that you're shooting. But this is a fantastic, almost unbeatable combination. Which camera should you buy for portraits? Really popular one. At the base level, I like to put people in the Canon world, the T6i. With that 18 to 135 lens, that kit lens will be versatile enough for things like group shots, shots of babies. And then as you get into portraits that include things like headshots where you want to blur the background to isolate the subject, pick up the Canon 50mm f1.8. There's a few different versions, but they'll all do you okay, and you can pick one up used and save yourself probably $20 or so. This lens, it's a cheap lens, but the results are totally pro. People will really like it. If you have some more money to spend, I would put you in the Nikon world. The Nikon D610 specifically is available for a great price, especially used because it's a couple of years old now. And then again, I'm going to recommend that Tamron 70-200 f2.8, a really, really sharp lens that used is available for great, great prices. If you're a really serious portrait or wedding photographer, my current favorite system is the Nikon D810 with the new Nikon 70-200 f2.8 E lens. It's a pretty expensive setup. This lens in particular is really expensive, but it's worth it. It's super sharp. It's nice and long. You can get beautiful background blur, things like portraits and headshots. This is pro grade. You really can't do better than this for general portrait photography. What about wildlife? There's no cheap solutions for wildlife. Those kit lenses I recommended earlier, the kit cameras, you can get like a 75 to 300 and get decent shots. If you can get close to animals, you can always get good wildlife, but most of us are gonna need to crop a little bit or work from more of a distance. So the price point here starts pretty high. But the best I can do for you is a used Canon 7D with a used Canon 400mm f5.6 prime. Together, amazingly, it's about $1,100, but this will produce pro-grade shots that can blow you away. If you're good at wildlife photography, you can check my book, Stunning Digital Photography. Chapter 8 covers wildlife photography. So check that kit out at those links. a serious step up from that is to get the 7D Mark II instead of the original 7D. This body is more expensive, but it has a higher frame rate and a better focusing system, and we like it generally overall. One step up from that is going to push you into the Nikon world. I really like the Nikon D500 and the Nikon 150 to 500 millimeter lens. It's a fantastic lens and really produces noticeably sharper images than we can get from that Canon 7D Mark II on the previous slide. So it's more expensive, but it's a worthwhile upgrade, and we really have a good time working with that. That lens also adds image stabilization, and it's a zoom instead of a prime, so it's more versatile as well. And if you just have a huge budget, I would put you in that same body. I still really like the D500, even though it's not the most expensive body. It's my favorite for wildlife. And then I'd put you in the Nikon 600 millimeter f4. The new one's incredibly sharp. You can save a few bucks and get the previous generation model, but the new one is definitely the best. And you might also pair that with the Nikon 1.4x, 1.4 times, or 2 times teleconverters. I know, big money here. Wildlife is hard. What about shooting video? I'm going to walk you through a few different price points. All these cameras can shoot some kind of video, but nowadays, if somebody wants a video camera specifically, I try to put them into a 4K camera. For a camera with a built-in lens, I really like the Panasonic FZ300. It has a really good and versatile lens built into it. It has that articulating screen, but the lens is fixed. You can't change the lens. And so that'll run you $450 or $500. At the same price point, you could get an interchangeable lens camera, the Panasonic G7, which is very similar to the previous camera, but it has a little bit bigger sensor. And with that, you could just pair a cheap kit lens like the one I'm suggesting here. I really prefer the 14 to 140 lens. However, it has more of a range, so you'll be able to zoom in more, and the image quality in general is a little bit better. So for that price point, this produces pretty pro 4K video. Remarkable quality on that. A step up from that, again, still in the Panasonic world, is the GH4. The GH4 is more of a professional video camera, and it has some features like a headphone jack. The other cameras don't have a headphone jack, so you can't really monitor your sound. Even if you're filming yourself, sometimes you want to play back the video and make sure that you got good sound, because there's nothing more frustrating than getting back to your desk and watching your video playback and realizing you didn't get the right sound. You have to go back and reshoot everything. So that headphone jack, really pretty critical to be able to monitor sound in the field. And I really like pairing it with the 14 to 140 here. The GH4 is about to be replaced by the GH5, but I'm sure the GH5 will be more expensive. So the GH4 remains a great deal on a 4K video camera. Probably the best overall video camera we've ever used as far as quality goes is the Sony a7S II. It lacks some of the usability features of the GH4, like it doesn't have a screen that flips forward. It doesn't have a touch screen, which is a real nuisance with it. But shooting in low light, it produces video quality that is like literally unmatched. It's remarkable. And the best lens we've used for video for that is the Sony 28 to 135 f4. It's a proper video lens with like a power zoom, and it feels fantastic to use. So this is an expensive setup, but for the dedicated video user, it really can't be beat. What if you want to shoot video, but you also want to shoot stills? People want to have it all, right? I'm going to suggest different cameras for that. At a lower price point, I know this is still expensive. We really like the X-T2 and the Fuji 16 to 55 f2.8. It's a fantastic combination. The one thing I have to warn you about is this does not have image stabilization, so you'd want to make sure either you have very, very steady hands or you keep it on a tripod. Nonetheless, it's really fun to use. The stills are wonderful, and the video, the 4K video, is also fantastic. A step up from that, the A7R II from Sony is a 42 megapixel sensor that produces absolutely stunning results, but it also does 4K video, either in full frame or with a 1.5x crop, and we really enjoy that versatility. It is a stabilized sensor, so whichever lens you put on it, it's automatically stabilized, which makes it good for handheld video. And really the best general purpose lens you can get for that is the Sony 24 to 70 f2.8 G Master lens. very sharp and high quality. Other Sony zooms that aren't G Master tend to not be that sharp. They're still good for video, but they don't really keep up with that sensor's performance, that 42 megapixel sensor. But the G Master lenses that are available are incredibly sharp and a great value, even though they're very expensive. What if you want a drone? Drones are cameras. They are just cameras that float. They're not toys anymore. These are serious tools. Let's go through a few different price points. The lowest drone I really suggest for somebody who might want to be making images is the Phantom P3 Standard, the Phantom 3 Standard. It has a fantastic video camera on it. I think it's 2.7K, so it's not 4K, but it's close. It's a really sharp, high-resolution sensor. With a gimbal, the video is nice and smooth. New, they're $400. You can buy them used, though. Just make sure you have some kind of guarantee, because a lot of people crash them. But it's definitely possible to buy a used one that's in perfect working order for even less than that. And I just cannot believe that they're $400. That's an incredible price for what you get out of it. Drones will open up a whole new world for you. If you can jump up to $1,000, they're not shipping at the moment, but they should be shipping soon. We have one of these, the DJI Mavic Pro. The video camera on it is substantially better than the Phantom 3 Standard. It folds up into a little thing about this big, so you can just sling it over your shoulder with the controller and carry it with you everywhere, unfold it like a transformer, and set it free. So as far as travel drones go, this is the only real choice that you have out there for making decent quality stills and video. Makes great still and video images. We absolutely love it. If you have a big budget, step up to one of the DJI Inspires. You can either get the original model or the new Inspire 2, which isn't yet shipping, but the body costs $3,000. The frame costs $3,000, but that does not include the camera. So they have a couple of different cameras you can get. Take a look at it. You're going to be dropping anywhere from $500 to about $2,000 on a camera. This model supports interchangeable lens cameras, so micro four thirds format. So you can put on real lenses and you can get things like background blur and telephoto views. You could zoom in on things and change your angle of view. So you're not fixed on that wide angle view that like smartphones and drones tend to have. It's expensive, but it's worth it. It's quite a great machine. Check it out, the Inspire 2. If you have more questions about gear, you can visit this link, sdp.io/help. Ask a comment down below and I might be able to answer the question for you. And give us a like, share it with your friends. And thanks so much. You can also, of course, cameras help. A new camera can definitely improve your images, but the most important thing is education. Learning how to master light, how to pose people, how to get the right expressions out of them, telling a story with your images. These are topics that I cover in my book, Stunning Digital Photography. I also have books covering both Lightroom and Photoshop, and a book on camera gear that will answer all those questions you have about what things are like focus breathing, what flashes you should get, what tripod, studio lighting you should get. All that's covered in my book here. I hope it helps. Thanks.